Hi, I'm Ryan Cunningham with DIY Painting and Refinishing, and in today's video, we're going to be going over how to patch and repair small drywall holes. Alright, let's get started. On this wall, we're getting ready to paint actually a room in my own house for my twins' bedroom. As you can see, we have lots of artwork, holes. Some of these were created by us for this video. Some were created by toys flying across the room. And this one was an old door. The door stopper broke. And this one was an old door. The door stopper broke and door went through the wall. So we're going to show you a few different methods that I use on all our painting jobs. These are simple, quick, and get the job done. This is DIY painting. So I want to show you the DIY method. I don't want to recommend that you go out and buy things that you're never going to use again. We have keyhole saws. I have a nice power saw over here and everything. But if you want to spend as little money as possible, a steak knife, a serrated steak knife will actually cut drywall just fine. And what I want to do to this hole is just square it up, because we're actually going to be patching another piece of drywall in here. This is a really popular thing you're seeing all over online right now, is everyone's catching on to some of these smarter ways of patching drywall. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to square this up into a nice clean shape. Go. All right, I don't need a perfect square. I'm not looking for perfection on this. I just wanted to clean up the edges here so we have a more square patch. And I'm gonna knock in the end of these edges that are standing up, just so that when I put my patch in, everything is gonna lie flat. Now we wanna measure out our hole. I've seen some people online, looks pretty slick, where they take a piece of paper and they'll trace that or something, but just measuring this out is going to work fine. So I'm right at 3 inches by about 4 1/4. All right, so our patch is roughly 3 by 4. So I actually want to go double that. I want to go about 1 inch out on every side. So I want to go about 6 by 5 is the piece that I actually want to cut out here. So we're going to go 5 by 6. So now we want to center the size of that hole right here on our piece of drywall that we got cut out. So I have a width of 2 15/16, so I'm going to mark that right here at about 1 inch, and then count out 1, 2, and 15/16 right in there. And do the same thing right over here. And then the height of it was 4 1/4. So I'm going to mark it at 1 and then at 5 1/4 so that I have a 4 1/4 height on it. And if you notice I'm doing this on the back, I'm actually going to draw this out on the back, then I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to keep all this front paper. So that when we put it in, it fits in. Right now I'm just going to use my drywall as a straight edge. Now I'm going to just trace on each line with my razor blade. Alright, I'm going to snap each one of these. We're going to try to save that paper on the front. So as we pull these off, we're going to cut a few extra lines here so that they snap easier. Just peel that drywall right off. There we go. So now if we've cut our patch out correctly, it should fit in nicely, and you're gonna have a patch that fits right over your hole with just a little bit of wiggle room in there. You don't want it flawlessly tight. So now we have some USG dust control here. It's what we're gonna be using for our patch. And what we wanna do is we just wanna go and get a nice layer. Oops, a little too much there. Little layer. If we go too thick, it'll fall down on all of our edges here. And then we want to spread that out. And that's basically our glue. We can go ahead and put a little bit here on the patch as well. Doesn't have to be anything pretty whatsoever. So we've got our patch already. Now that's going to be going in. Press that in. Should see a little bit coming out just about everywhere. Now we just want to smooth that out. And that's it for step one. We've got the patch in, got it nice and tight. We've got it basically mudded down. And once this dries, we're gonna add another layer of mud over the top of that and sand that smooth, and this patch will completely disappear into the wall. Yesterday we did 2 different patches on here. I showed you how we cut out the patches and how we get them in and get that first bit of mud on here. Now we're gonna do our second coat over the top and start to try to smooth these out. Notice I'm just using a 6-inch mud knife. They're anywhere $6, $7 to $10 at your local hardware store. There we go. So our goal here is to just get a nice coat as evenly as possible and try to bring it about 4 inches past our patch in all directions and get this as smooth as possible with as few bumps as possible, few bubbles as possible. And then we're actually going to do one more coat when we're done with this, and we're going to take that out another 2 inches or so, and that'll allow us to sand in our patch into the wall and feather it in and be completely unnoticeable when we're done. There we go. All right, for smaller holes, at a certain point, you've got to use tape. You have to use something. If it was a little bit smaller than this, you could probably get away with just stuffing that with mud, waiting for it to dry, second coating it and smoothing it out. But we're gonna go ahead and just put a little piece of mesh tape over this patch, which my mesh tape is getting kind of old. Cut that off. And all we need to do for this small hole is to get that piece of tape covered with mud for the first coat and make sure nothing's bubbling, nothing's bowing, anything funny like that, nothing's sticking up. And once that dries, we're gonna go over with the second coat and then sand that smooth. So one last thing I wanted to show is on little holes, you can kind of see how this hole kind of protrudes out from the wall. And I don't want to just cover that in mud. It'll end up being a bump out from the wall. So on the back of your mud knife, you get a little metal area and push that in until it's a dent into the wall, so that when we mud it, it can be flush with the wall. So the last step that we need to do on our drywall patches is to sand them out. We've got the patch in, we have the first coat, and the second coat of mud is on here. I think we did that off camera, but we're on a job, gotta keep it moving. So the last step that we have to do on this patch is to sand it out. We've gone ahead and we've done the patch, we've done the first coat mud, then we did the second coat of mud, and now it's time for sanding. When I sand, I like to sand around this outer edge and feather that into the wall first. We don't want to over sand. Just start with feathering this edge the whole way around. Now that the edge is feathered in, just double check. Now we're going to go over lightly over the center of the patch. The whole goal here is that our coats of mud have actually smoothed this out, and there's very little sanding to do. We're just knocking down any high spots and smoothing out the whole patch in general. We're really not trying to take away much mud at all. That's a common problem I see, is that people over sand and take away their patch and sand right back into the problem areas. And that's actually great, right there. Now we're ready for paint. Typically on a patch of this size, I want to spot prime it before I two-coat paint over. And by spot prime, I'm not saying I need to get out a whole nother primer. I'll just roll out right over this with the wall paint. Go ahead and let that dry. Then when I two-coat the walls, it'll actually get 3 coats. And that'll make sure that this drywall patch doesn't cause any flashing on that final coat. Well, that's it for this video on DIY painting tips. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and join us for our next video.